Hi guys! So you probably know that it's Asexuality Awareness Week. If you don't know, I'm telling you. I just recorded the exact same video in French, but I thought it was such an important topic. For me, at least personally, I feel like it's a very important topic. I just really wanted to spread the message in both languages, and I feel too lazy to make subtitles because it takes a long time, so I thought I would just chat with you a little bit in English about asexuality. So I have several videos up on my channel about this matter because I am asexual myself, and because I feel like it's a very important thing to talk about, as I said, and also because after the first video that I made and uploaded online about asexuality, I got such an overwhelming response and overwhelming feedback. So many people messaged me or commented saying they were asexual, that they knew someone who was asexual, that they had a relationship with someone who identifies as asexual, and that they found it really helpful. And I got so many questions. It was kind of insane because when you look at asexuality, you see that it's only about maximum 3% of the population who is thought to be asexual. So I don't know how accurate those numbers are because there aren't as many studies as there are for other sexual orientations or sexual phenomenon. I also don't know how accurate because asexuality being so unknown and so not talked about, and also due to patriarchy and this idea that women are not really sexual beings unless they're objectified. I feel like a lot of women that could be asexual just think that their lack of desire or sexual attraction is just normal as women. I also feel like men, because of the stigma attached to it, if you're a man you should want sex, perhaps don't come out as asexual. And I feel like the fact that we are not so taught about our own bodies, our own feelings and emotions, and because we live in a society that's so hypersexualized, I'm pretty sure that many people do not really feel sexual attraction but are not fully aware that they don't feel it because they aren't really able to recognize their feelings and sensations. So for me personally, I do think that more people than 3% of the population is asexual, but for an array of and a variety of reasons, as I just show you, I feel like the numbers are quite hesitant. But yeah, you just hear all the time that asexuality is uncommon, is very rare, and then you upload a video and you get so many people telling you about, how they relate and how they feel the same and how their experiences are similar. So obviously it's, obviously asexuality is still a very, very, very small minority, but it matters because we are people, it's just not a number on the screen. It's actually real people outside dealing with anxiety, doubts, confusion, struggling with their identity because it's something we'd never talk about. It's something you never see discussed online or on TV or on magazines anywhere. And if it's discussed, it's mostly under the form of disease and a lack of libido, a lack of sexual desire, which is not right and which is not positive in our society, because sexuality, and I have nothing against sexuality, I have nothing against people who are very sexual, that's completely fine, but I'm just saying that our society portrays relationships as being successful if the sexual component is very high, and we are always told to perform a certain way when it comes to relationship and sexuality, which I think is very, very detrimental and very harmful to a lot of people. So in my opinion, asexuality is very important, not only for asexuals but also for everyone, because asexuality particularly, I feel like, is a sexual orientation that allows a lot of discussions around relationships, feelings, intimacy, trust, self-respect and boundaries that we need to have in our societies because they're really missing. I mean, we don't have them enough, quite frankly. So asexuality, in my opinion, is important. I've said it before because it is, more than any other sexual orientation, in my opinion, even more than the idea of identity, perhaps, an idea of spectrum. You have asexuality and you have allosexuality, and then you place yourself. So it allows you to really sort of gauge things out with yourself and see where you want to place yourself. I've said it before as well, I consider myself grey asexual, even though I've never felt sexual attraction for people before. So you have asexuality, you have grey asexuality, which is a bit more flexible, and it just says that perhaps under certain circumstances or one time in your life or with one person you felt sexual attraction, but it means it's still very rare. And then you have demisexuality, which in my opinion, and I've said it before as well, does not really belong to the asexuality part of the spectrum, because demisexuality is when you can have sexual desire or sexual attraction after you've created a very deep emotional bond with someone. So it's not a lack of sexual attraction, it's just a particular way to form sexual attraction, whereas asexuality is defined by, therefore, the lack of sexual attraction. So for me, it is in the allosexuality part of the spectrum, just, you know, a little bit on the left, so a little bit in the middle, I would say. But I don't think it is asexuality, in my opinion, because I feel like the struggles and the repercussions and the consequences in daily life and in private life and in relationships are very, very different. Talking about that, I just also want to say very quickly that even though I'm asexual, I'm also bi-romantic. So I'm and I'm someone who's really interested in sexuality and feminism and stuff like that. So I just want to say that even though I do think that we need more visibility, we need more awareness, we need more education about asexuality, it's not, in my opinion, the same sort of need as there would be for bisexuality or homosexuality, because we don't suffer and we don't struggle in the same way. We don't have the same sort of violence, oppression, discrimination, threats, and our rights are not as threatened as gay people or bi people, for example. So that's something to take in consideration and keep in mind, in my opinion. When you talk about those things, you need to be a little bit sensitive. But yeah, I also think that asexuality is really important because it allows more debates and more conversation. It opens new discussions about relationships in general, because I feel like, you know, I think that everyone has this idea that a romantic relation, that there, first of all, there are friendships and romantic relationships. Personally, I feel like there are more to this, more to relationships. I think there are different kinds of relationships, different kinds of feelings, different kinds of tenderness and love and affections for people. And I do think that asexuality, with the question of platonic relationship, with the question of gray sexuality, with the question of spectrum, also with the question of just opening a discussion between the partners, make it more obvious. And on top of that, I do feel like we need to realize that you might, even though you're not asexual, have already been really like close to someone without having any of the sexual attraction that would make it appear for most people as a romantic relationship. So I think most of us have been in this situation when we felt real deep feelings of affection, tenderness, intimacy, closeness with someone, even perhaps physical in some ways, but no sexual desire. And this, unfortunately, in our society is never considered as love because sex is lacking, whereas relationships where there is a lot of sex and not a lot of love, not a lot of trust, not a lot of intimacy, are seen as more valid and more, you know, alright, I guess. And I do think it's a bit of a shame. I think we need to shift a little bit our values, because yes, sex is important. If you like sex, go for it, it's amazing. But I feel like feelings and intimacy and trust are very important, and I just find it very sad. Sometimes I hear people say, I really like him, I really get along with him, I really appreciate him or whatever, and I know they have feelings, but they're like, the sex is not great. And I find it very sad that just because of one little thing we can't work it out. And I think it's not a natural thing. Perhaps I'm not right about this, I don't know, and that's an interesting debate. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, guys. But I think it's because we put so much pressure and emphasis on sexuality in our societies that we see it as the main component, even though no one really wants to admit it in our relationships. And I think it's kind of sad, because I feel like society and standards and, you know, just general perceptions and representations should not decide for us what is the main component of relationships. So yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to say. Also one thing I really wanted to say, and I've said it before, I have a video about this, so I will link it down below. What defines or decides sexual orientation is not behavior, it is feeling. So it does not matter if you have sex, if you've had sex, or if you don't have sex. If you do not feel sexual attraction and you want to identify as asexual, you're asexual. Just like if you fancy girls and boys, but you've never had either a relationship with boy or with girl, you're bi, you're still bi. Just because you haven't experienced it or because your experiences don't match with your feelings and what you identify as doesn't make it less valid. So yeah, that's also something we really need to discuss, I think, in the asexual topic, because a question that comes back very frequently is, how do you get into a relationship? It's like, well, it depends. You could get in a relationship with someone who's fine with not having sex, or you could be in a relationship and have sex because you're comfortable with it, but it doesn't make you any less asexual. It's the same with the question of masturbation and things. I think we need to shift the focus, not so much on behavior and on feelings. Then we can have the discussion about behavior, and most importantly, we can have this discussion with best intentions in mind and a benevolent approach, because most of the time it's mostly questions to deny the reality of asexuality, which is very harmful and not positive and not something you should do. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it helpful and interesting. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!